Chapter 4.2, Part 5. This will be the last segment. We're going to get into the sacred spaces still. The last one on there will be the main entrance portal with the Muqarnas at Masjid Isha, early 17th century, and this is in Iran. It's kind of interesting to note that Shah Jahan, who built the Taj Mahal for a tomb for his wife, also was responsible for the design and building of this mosque. So we're just looking at a segment, an entryway, and look how grand that is. The whole mosque. We don't have that image handy here for this part of the textbook, but very impressive. I mean, a human being is down here about that size going through this small door right here. Very beautiful, intricate, mosaic, colorful. This blue is quite expensive and rare. Lapis would be ground down into that glaze for tile, or if we're picking stone, the lapis itself. This is made up of a number of different materials here to make this beautiful entrance. This is stone right here, so some nice marble with different coloration here around there, wood door, but very impressive. And with the Islamic religion, a little bit different in terms of the visuals, and later you see this in Judaism. There's no representation of a person. You don't depict Allah, and you don't depict any of the characters in any of the religious people that would be in the history. All you're going to depict would be some floral patterns and geometric patterns. We have both here, but I would say the floral patterns are the design within the mosaics, but then we get into some geometric pattern with the actual architecture, if that makes sense. This is a bit of a geometric pattern, but it's containing a floral pattern. But both are important. The idea of order and sacred geometry is important to the Islamic religion. And this particular mosque has 4 iwans, or vaulted entrances. I'm reading from the book on page 588 here, between the courtyard and the mosque's interior. Other defining features of mosques include large towers, minarets that rise above the city to call the citizens to prayer, pointed arches, large pools for cleansing before prayer, and a mihrab, a special prayer niche. And Muslims pray 5 times a day. They have to wash and their hands and sometimes feet, sometimes face, but they go in and it's a ritual washing of the hands. So there has to be water, usually located near the entrance. And then they go inside and they would face Mecca with the mihrab. They're going to face Mecca to pray. So it's interesting. Mosques around the world are oriented very differently, northwest, east, south, whereas a Christian cathedral or church is going to be oriented along those axes, along the north-south, so that the where you're praying, the entrance is usually on the west, and then this is traditional, but it's not so true. Every day now we have churches all over the place, but where the cross would hang over where the priest would stand would usually face east. Now with a mosque, it could be any kind of positioning in that way, north-south, because you're orienting wherever you're going to walk in, and then you're going to find the mihrab inside, and you're going to have your blanket, your prayer cloth down below you, facing that direction. So it could be sort of at a diagonal or what have you, and the orientation of the mihrab is going to be toward Mecca. So they find that orientation if they're south of it or north of it or east of it or west or what have you. So they'll find that so that they can pray in that direction. So back to our front here, pardon the pun, we have all these interesting patterning here with the actual architecture. So these are multiple domes, and it's to replicate sort of the idea of the shifting vault of heaven. or as the book says, the rotating dome of heaven. And you see a lot of arches in Islamic architecture and a lot of domes in the mosques. You see domes in other religions as well, and it's usually a representative of heaven, like the sky above us, and that's our orientation. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the calligraphic script, which isn't really easy to see in this photo, but down here, these tiles have calligraphic script, really beautiful writing. I think it is the most beautiful writing that has ever existed. I just think it's so elegant and gorgeous. And there's couple different types, but I think different eras, the style of it, but it's quite beautiful. Okay, so that's our entering into this space, and this is our the Muqarna is this space right here. They have the Iwans, the vaulted entrances, the minarets, the mihrab is the prayer niche inside, which is oriented toward Mecca. Now we're going to jump into a very different culture, a little bit different time frame. We were in the 17th century, early 17th century. And remember, if you're new to the way centuries are described, the 17th century is going to be the 1600s, if that makes sense. Okay, 19th century, 1800s, 20th century, 1900s, so on. We're in the 21st century, and we're in the year 2020. So we want to think about it in that way. 21st is going to be the year 20 something. Okay, all right. So here we are in Japan, and the Shinto religion is very different from any of the other religions. I mean, it's similar to some native religions, really, and it kind of grew from Japanese culture. It's very ancient. So in the Shinto religion, it's more about the here and now, and you'll see throughout art history and different cultures their idea of a permanent temple, because this temple has existed in this space since the year 690. It's been there for 1,300 years plus. It's been here in this space, but it's been rebuilt every 20 years. Part of the reason for that is the wood doesn't last that long. We talked about that a little bit about finding artifacts in different cultures, but wood would not last in Japan anyway for that long a period of time. It's very rainy and it's very humid, and over time that wood would really have rotted. So they rebuild this every 20 years in a ritualistic way. Prayers are said and rituals are performed. But it's still, an active shrine. If you notice, you don't go inside. There's not a big open space for a lot of practitioners. It's kind of small. There's a stairway right here. It's very small. So they don't have larger, with the Shinto religion, you don't have large gatherings like you do in Christianity or Judaism or Islam. You don't have like a big interior structure, if that makes sense. So it emphasizes the natural elements, and it's connected to and this is again page 588, sun, mountain, water, and trees. And this one is the Ise Jingu site, and this is rebuilt again. This has been rebuilt in 1993. It's probably due for a rebuild, or perhaps our book just doesn't have the most recent photo of it. But there's thousands of shrines like this dedicated to sun goddess Amaterasu Omikami, and local residents will visit the shrine to revere the goddess and seek her assistance. So it's a wood building, it's rebuilt, and it's a special ceremony, and this is the god that we're interacting with is the Amaterasu Omikami, but kami is sort of a general term for a deity. So it's very simple. One's well-being. I don't know if I made that really clear, but as a personal well-being, it's connected to natural elements, which you see that we've kind of re-embraced in our culture and trying to get out in nature more often. But, that's one of the influences from Shintoism. Very different example, very modern, current. I mean, it's 50 years old, but it's very much in within modernism, and it's within. This is a current piece that's still up, the Rothko Chapel, and you can see this sort of idea of contemplation. You have these benches, and you just look at these paintings. This is a triptych, 3 paintings put together, very dull, dark colors. And it's kind of interesting because he was known for his brighter colors. He's an abstract expressionist, and he died in 1970. And some say he was very depressed, and that's why these have these dull, dark colors. This is very intentional. It's in Houston. It's in the Mental collection in Houston, but he wanted people to come in and just contemplate the works and sort of stare into these fields of color, and they create tranquil and contemplative atmosphere. Now, I want to say for Rothko, for me anyway, and I know this is true of other people, any Rothko is, I think, very transporting. If you sit and you interact with a Rothko painting, partly because it's so large and it just sort of absorbs you, that you kind of just absorb the color, you absorb the emotion. And that's one of the ideas behind abstract expressionism. The artist is putting in his intent into this field of color. There's no representational, there's no sun or house or dog or cat or anything that we relate to in that way. But the mood or the intention of the artist is captured in there. And he's hoping or he's expecting that you're going to sit and contemplate these paintings, interact with them in this way, and take in this emotion and this spiritual experience. So he, in some ways, for some of the abstract expressionists, the idea that you really are digging deep and trying to provide something from deep within in a spiritual way, that is in the artwork. So very different from what we would think of as traditional religious artwork, in that it's not a figure, statue of Mary, something like that. This is us just feeling a spiritual sensation and a contemplative moment, a quiet moment in a chapel. This is non-denominational, and there's 14 paintings there. So he wants it open to anybody who wants to sit in there. It's a little bit, if you've ever been in a Quaker space, it kind of reminds me that a little bit in terms of Quakerism has sort of a circular interior sometimes, or a place where the practitioners, I forget, they're called friends, but I can't remember the wording, they would sit and face one another. But in this case, he's asking you to face the painting. So that in that way, it's different. So he's trying to get you beyond your everyday experience. It's kind of like a respite and a moment to contemplate things. Okay, that's it.